Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of The Teacher's Point of View. I've got a special lad on this episode actually. We've got David Harkin, who's the founder of 8 Billion Ideas, doing some amazing work, going into schools and actually helping kids with entrepreneurship, as he just pointed out to me before we started recording. And he's working on ways with the Foundation for Education Development to actually come up with ways that education can kind of reach the 21st century, so to speak. I mean, David, I'm not going to big you up too much, right? Can you kind of introduce yourself and talk about the amazing work you're doing?
I like being called a special lad, TJ. That's a nice way to start a podcast. I'm a dad of lads, and they keep me well, they keep me awake at the moment. I've got a 2 and a 4-year-old who are pretty relentless. So that's very kind. So yeah, thanks, TJ. Lovely to be here. I run a business called 8 Billion Ideas, which is about giving students the skills and belief to go change the world. We're formerly known as 7 Billion Ideas, so some people in education might have heard about us before. We've been in the sector for 6-7 years now, worked in over 500 schools, 100,000 students. But I think we're probably best known so far for our work in kind of lobbying and talking a lot about entrepreneurship in education. It's so important with schools producing more entrepreneurs than any other profession. It needs to be strategic and not something which is just done in schools. So yeah, delighted to be here, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, what made you kind of go into working with schools and trying to build the future entrepreneurs?
Well, the whole idea when it started was I was just with a group of friends, and we were just talking about ideas, fun, thoughtful, creative ideas on a Sunday. It was my friend's birthday, and I said, we always come up with ideas all the time. We do nothing about them. And the planet's population was passing 7 billion people. So I turned to one of my friends and co-founder, Jenny, and said, isn't it crazy that so many people out there do nothing about the ideas they talk about? Why don't we build an organization called 7 Billion Ideas, which would be about inspiring action and getting going? And they all kind of looked at me and thought I was absolutely bonkers. And one thing led to the next thing I did is got the smartphone out, purchased the domain for £20 at 7billionideas.com, purchased 8, 9, the rest of it, because we had this kind of view it could last. And we went on a crowdfunding platform because we needed some seed capital to get going, and we ended up becoming the fastest crowdfunding pitch in the world, which in a way was crazy. We raised £30,000 in 2 hours when we started, just to go get that initial platform and initial marketing money and just get that seed capital. But it was when we jumped into schools. So the plan was always jump into schools as quickly as we possibly can and just inspire action and getting students to really think big and dream big about the possibility of their ideas. And it started off by doing assemblies, and those assemblies turned into activity days and courses and programs and competitions. And it was when we started doing those assemblies, we realized that, we could really help the sector. We could really help education, because we were seeing some really good stuff in schools around this topic of entrepreneurship, but it wasn't strategic. It was kind of one of those things on the list, which schools were endeavoring to do their best, but there just wasn't enough time to do it at the level it needed to be done. So we kind of jumped in and started building great relationships, which we still do today.
It's awesome. I think it's such a place for it, because we only need to look at the last 20 years and the evolution of estate agencies. There were one in every area. Now there's one on every corner in every area, and people want to create independent companies. They want flexibility. They want work-life balance. They want to be their own boss. And it's crazy that in the education system, it's not a core module. I think it's so important that we teach people how to lead, how to become entrepreneurs, how to think about finances, how to invest. And these things are such important things in the real world. And we just don't do it in schools. I mean, I know you get a business model when you're 10, 11, and that's optional. I mean, we get children to vote at 18 and we'd never teach them any politics. I mean, there's so many things that we're kind of missing out on. I mean, that's why I think the work you're doing is so amazing. I mean, you've obviously joined the Foundation for Education Development, right? I mean, in order to help improve education. I mean, you've gone from 7 billion ideas, 8 billion ideas, then to be a part of this massive movement in some respects. I mean, how did that interlink?
Well, yeah, just 2 points. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I believe entrepreneurship should be one of the first things you're introduced to in reception in year 1 when you're in school. 15% of the workforce are self-employed. 51% of Gen Z to say they want to start a business. whether or not you're going to be an entrepreneur or an intrapreneur. So an intrapreneur is someone who acts like an entrepreneur, but within a business or in school. So the most creative people out there pushing boundaries in schools and businesses are entrepreneurial in nature. So businesses need and schools need entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs. Okay, so we need them, but we need to adjust what's happening in our schools, or indeed help our schools out a little bit more, so we can make sure children really do have the skills they need to flourish by the time they are jumping into the workforce or creating a business. Okay, it's increasingly more likely a child will be self-employed than employed. And nobody's talking about self-employment, freelancing, how do you do your tax, and how you do all of these things to actually go and do that in the real world, right? And at the end of the day, school is there to help you prepare for your future. So we need to do a bit of readjustment. I don't think we need a revolution in education. We need an evolution is what needs to happen. There's so much good stuff, but there's also a lot more we can do. So the way I ended up getting involved in FED, and for those which aren't watching it or following it right now, you must, right?
You must. Definitely do it.
Yeah, Carl Ward's doing some amazing work there. But what happened in the heat of the pandemic last year for our business was we started hearing some incredible stories of innovation, resilience, commitment, but from every part of the sector. So when I started a company which operates in education, I never wanted to get pigeonholed into just servicing one part. We wanted to be, our mission is about every student. We wanted to make sure that we could work across the sector. But I was hearing some unbelievable stories from what was happening in young offenders units to academies, international schools, boarding, literally the whole spectrum. And I felt in this kind of unique scenario, like I was hearing this unbelievable story. So anyway, we kind of brainstormed and thought, how can we bring people together? And we did an event with the broadcaster, Alistair Stewart, about unlocking education. And it was really refreshing. We were joined by Baroness Nicky Morgan, former Minister of Education, in the first one. Really refreshing conversation. It was fascinating to see what was going on. The second conversation followed a little bit later in the year. Dame Alison Peacock, and I know you've had on your podcast, joined us from the education community, but we then reached out and we had people come on and speak from the world of employment. So the head of graduates at IBM, we had LinkedIn, we had representation from the startup community. We kind of evolved the conversation from, something needs to change to, okay, if something needs to change, what do we need it to change towards to? And that second Unlocking Education event was fascinating because we really kind of dive deeper into particularly skills, character education, entrepreneurship in schools. And so those two conversations led us to having a conversation with FED, saying the word conversation a lot. And we were completely in alignment with what Carl Ward and that organisation was doing about setting a long-term vision. We agreed to send our transcripts in about what we had talked about, and for me to jump in and be a council member to help with the ongoing conversations and what FED is trying to do, which everybody should be trying to do. What is the long-term vision that we all want? Then we'll work out how we're going to get there. Unless we have that long-term vision, we can't set the path. And there's no point everybody talking about we need change. There's no point everybody talking about education is rubbish. It's not rubbish. There's some fantastic stuff going on.
Absolutely.
Get the vision set and we can all start marching towards it. So FED are trying to do that firstly and make it all understandable for everybody. And that's why I jumped in to get involved.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, let's start with the why. Let's start with what we're doing it for, right? I mean, it's crazy because a lot of people talk about the what and the how and all of this, but actually, what is the purpose of education? I mean, like if you take away the nuts and the bolts and actually look at what's important, it's about preparing these children and making them not just successful in careers, but actually good people, empathetic, like have some entrepreneurship, like leadership skills, presentation, being able to speak to people. Like there's so much that that goes on in the 21st century that is beyond just learning content, and I think like those traditionalists, I get it. I understand that it's important to know content. I mean, but knowledge should be the starting point, right? I mean, I think some people see it as very much black and white. You could have to do one or the other, but actually there's a bit of good in both, right? And we should just be able to combine it and do more for our kids, because those children that come from deprived backgrounds, disadvantaged backgrounds, broken families that only ever achieve C's, I mean, what opportunities are we giving them? I mean, we talk about the gap between the advantage and the disadvantage every single year, but then we do the same thing every year and expecting things to change. I mean, it's got to happen, hasn't it? The pandemic has just taken us back 50 years in terms of the gap between the advantage and disadvantage. So we can't spend another 50 years trying to catch up to where we were, you know? So something radical in some respects needs to happen. I know you said not a revolution, because I think you're right. There is so much good that it does happen in education, but there is too many children every year that get forgotten about. And I think that's
rapid evolution, I would say, is what's required, right? So look, I couldn't agree with you more. I think the one thing that I've massively learned from working across all of the sectors is that I've never met a child that doesn't have an amazing imagination. Fact.
Yeah.
But each child will have different skills and different belief levels. Okay, some children will have all the skills that they need, but absolutely zero belief, and then vice versa. None of the skills, but loads of belief. Right? You can look at every child, and some children don't have any of the skills or any of the beliefs. So you've got to look at it as simple as that. How do you build a child up over time while they're under care? You know, I definitely believe no child should leave education without having a clear understanding of what their passions are. Okay. Yeah. No, I don't expect every 16 or 18-year-old to know exactly what they want to do. But I do think, I don't understand why we have a system in place which is about preparing people for their future, and the vast majority of children still leaving school with no idea or clarity about how to articulate what they're passionate about. If you've got that, you can often find a pathway into a career which is either directly linked or indirectly linked to it. So there is considerable improvement which needs to happen across the sector, but I think the opportunity here is exciting, right? And I don't want to be a generation that doesn't grasp this. I think it would be pathetic if we don't in the next 12 to 24 months. Now, if you genuinely think about it, you've had a paradigm shift within education and outside of it. You've had industries destroyed, you've had industries redefined, and you've also had industries created. So it's actually quite an exciting time to be a young person, because Generation Z students should be able to grasp the new world out there quicker than most if they've got the skills and the belief. I also think, and I'll get off my high horse in a second, I also think now we should be able to eliminate where people are based. Okay, so geographical locations of students in particular schools around the UK has often led to less opportunities. Okay, but there's now moving away for no reason why someone shouldn't be able to do work experience with a massive corporate, no matter where they might be, because you can do it online. Okay, so I don't believe we should be talking about work experience in the United Kingdom anymore. I think that should be ripped up. I think we should be talking about giving our young people as many experiences as they possibly can while they're at school. Why cannot a 15 or 16-year-old work for a multinational company on an experience, been involved in a startup, had such a variety of stuff while they've been at school that really they are just so exciting to go out there and change the world when they're 16 and 18. That's the purpose of the school, okay? Yeah. Giving that child a sense of community, sense of belonging, picking up key skills, picking up key knowledge, but making them fearless when they go out to the world, that they can go and find or create work that they're passionate about.
Absolutely. I mean, I think we have a duty in education not to just give them basic skills to get on to 18, which some people genuinely believe. They believe that school is to give children like those basic skills. And actually, but then again, we go back to the argument. You don't give them basic skills. You don't teach them anything about politics, but then you expect them to vote at 18. You expect them to go buy a house, but don't tell them how to save up for a mortgage, or like how taxes work or how interest rates work. I mean, we don't give them basic skills. I mean, I guess we give them a wide curriculum and we give them loads of content. But actually, the relevance is the more important thing, right? And I think everyone should learn a bit of Shakespeare, but actually, like, not everyone needs to know quadratic equations. I mean, like, it'd be far better to teach someone how to save up for a mortgage, right? And I think it's important to help kids by a certain age. I don't know what age that is. I mean, I don't have the expertise to say that, but somewhere between the age of like 9 to 14, somewhere around that age, we should be able to identify what they're good at and help them really excel in what they're passionate about. Because I think what happens is there's certain children that get to 18 that have never been good at the generic subjects, right? And it doesn't matter what their talent is. They go through life thinking that they're never going to be good enough, because that is how we judge them. And that is heartbreaking. Those kids that come from deprived areas, like disadvantaged backgrounds, that just go through 18 years of their life never feeling like they're actually good at one particular thing. You know, I mean, we're making too many generalists and nobody that actually specializes in what they do. I mean, if you go into PC world, you want someone that knows their stuff about laptops. You don't want someone that just knows stuff about everything but doesn't know the ins and outs of something, right? And it's like nobody wants an average employee. As an employer, I don't want to take on somebody that is going to be okay. I want people that are going to make a difference, you know, that are going to challenge ideas, be innovative, that are going to come and challenge the status quo, you know? I mean, like, that is not what we're teaching in schools.
Well, we're squashing, we squash kids too quickly, right? In two perspectives. They come up with an idea and we tell them why it can't happen. I've noticed there's two natural instincts when someone, not let alone a child, says an idea. So firstly, people tell them the reasons why it can't happen. And there's two reasons behind that. Firstly, protection kicks in. They want to protect that person from some sort of failure. And the second thing is jealousy kicks in, even if it's a friend or family member. That person's got an idea and they might do something about it. Okay, that happens in schools, unfortunately, as well. Not all the time, but it does happen that people come up with ideas and we quickly want to protect that young person because it might not become a success. The second thing, when people talk about the careers, we do exactly the same thing. A great example is when a 9 or 10-year-old might say that they want to be a footballer. 9 times out of 10, the conversation will go along the lines of, okay, how good are you at football? Rather than, that's fascinating. Why? Why do you want to do that? Let's open up the world of the football industry. Or when someone says they want to be a gamer, gaming is bigger than the music industry, right? And we kind of start squashing that young person rather than saying, it's actually a massive industry, right? Whether or not you're Cristiano Ronaldo, you could probably find some really interesting work which will engage you and make you happy and satisfied for the rest of your life in that industry. But the natural instinct is to go, bush, you can't be a footballer, don't even consider the football industry, which is phenomenal because unfortunately that's just what's in a lot of people's instincts. And in terms of career education in school, it's massively underfunded. We have 1 or 2 people running around trying to look after hundreds and hundreds of kids or get them placed with work experience, whatever it might be. And in my eyes, it shouldn't be a careers department. It should be a passion department. It should be the biggest funded part of the school, helping that young person, no matter their academic ability, find what they're passionate about. Because if you've got passion, that's the thing which gets you out of bed every day. You're not, if you've got passion, it doesn't matter what it might be. You will get out of bed and you will give your best. And you've got passion, you're going to be productive. You're going to be productive, you're going to probably produce some good work. You're going to produce work, we're going to have brilliant businesses here in the United Kingdom, around the world.
100%.
It's not difficult.
I mean, you're bang on, man. I mean, when I have passion, I am literally 100 million miles per hour. When I have no passion, or if my heart's not in it, I don't do anything. I mean, genuinely, in the last 4 months, I found my passion back, and I'm really I found my why, and I'm really working towards it. I've gone from, I've just been constantly coming up with ideas, how to evolve my company, and it's because I'm so passionate about it. Do you know what I mean? I mean, there's been points in my career when I've lost that passion. I'll get to a certain point. I got to director in my previous company and I was like, now what? And then I just lost all my enthusiasm. And it's like that. The big problem I've always had though is it's always been about the progression. It's been about the money, whereas it wasn't about the why. It was all extrinsic motivators, and it's an intrinsic thing. Like I want to actually do it because I feel like I'm genuinely making a difference, and I think those children that they don't get that. I mean, you go through 18 years of your life not ever finding that fire burning inside of you, and that's what gets people up in the morning. That's what people, like you said, that's what makes people go work hard. It doesn't feel like a job then. It doesn't feel like work because you want to make it happen,
There's a guy I love and have known for a while, Nick Hurd, who relentless optimism on Twitter, doing some work for the National College of Education, and he introduced me to this fear of memorable moments, right? His belief was in school, your job was to create memorable moments. And then I started reading more about it. And I can utterly agree with him that actually what we should be trying to do in our school is, when we all look back, there's only half a dozen things you can't remember from your school education. It was the amazing assembly, the outside speaker, the teacher going above and beyond, the loss on the sports field, your head teacher saying something utterly random but funny. What we've got to do is do like that on heat, like times 10, times 100, have more times to create moments that might get a child their perspective on the world to change in a positive way, and get those more role models in schools, and where that young person can go, that's what I want to be. I can relate to that person, rather than 1 or 2 random speakers coming in every now and then. There's a great lady called Edwina Dunn who runs the Female Lead, and she had this. She started this organization which, and her kind of motto was, you can't be what you can't see. So she was going into schools in London, some inner city schools, and asking young girls who their role models were. And they were all saying, 9 out of 10 were saying a Kardashian. And she was shocked by it, right? She was going, they've achieved some great stuff. I'm not going to get down that on this particular podcast. But her point and her conclusion was, it's not these students' fault at year 8, year 9, year 10 that they're saying a Kardashian. It's because it's the only thing they're seeing.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
If we flood them with the positive role models, their role models will change, their aspirations will change, the passion could come out a little bit earlier. But that's nothing about what's being taught in maybe their lessons, it's what's happening outside of it. You know, extra curriculum is, you know, should be strategic. We should be reviewing what is going on and getting those great role models in schools to ignite that passion.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's. I think, yeah, you're absolutely right, because it's especially like with the access that children have to social media, and you see all of these lives, right? And I put that in quotation marks because, like, there's this false interpretation of what life can be like, right? And I mean, unless you get very lucky. In some respects, though, we should be maybe teaching children about how to use social media and make a career out of it. Those ones that are passionate about it. But I mean, that's a story for a different moment. But I think ultimately, like, we need to be like thinking about how much social media does affect these children. I think, like, obviously, we all know that there's a level of dopamines that are released in your brain when obviously a child posts something. They want social approval. If they don't get the likes or the comments that they want, they will obviously, some of them will feel that social disapproval and have anxiety because of it, right? And it's like a come down, like you'll have that dopamine in your brain wanting more and you don't get it, and it's like you come on a come down. And these children are facing that every single day, you know. I mean, there's millions of children that are facing that every single day. So how do we help them? Because we're not at the moment, we're not actually regulating what social media is doing and what it's offering to children. I mean, you can access anything, right? So do we need to incorporate social media in a way that is actually within education to make it so it's relatable to children? Or do we need to think about actually how we teach social media, like teach the children through social media? I don't know. I mean, like, is there a way that we can incorporate social media to help develop these children?
Okay, so it's like entrepreneurship. Okay, so when you speak to children in schools in the United Kingdom, when they think of entrepreneurship, probably two things quickly going through their head is Dragon's Den. Okay, they're thinking all entrepreneurs have to go on television and get nervous and sweat, and then they think of Lord Sugar and they think of The Apprentice, right? Which isn't a great advocate for business and how business is done. You know, there's very little integrity and professionalism in that show. And Dragon's Den, although they're both entertainment shows, they're entertaining. Yeah. That's what children think of entrepreneurship, and that's not the case. You walk out your local high street, you've got entrepreneurs in every single one of those establishments who've had the courage to go create an institution to add value in different ways. Okay, so role modeling is so important. Look, my view on this is we need a long-term vision for education, and we need to start thinking 24/7. Okay, children are only at school 15% of their waking hours, so schools have a major responsibility here. But as you touched on, TJ, what about the other 85% of hours that they're awake? Okay, there is no moderation currently on what's happening on social media. We're not jumping on it and teaching kids properly. There's no instructions to the media about what's on television or on Netflix. None of this. Okay, this is how kids are also learning. So, you know, mic drop moment. Kids don't just learn in schools. So if we've got to change from that position that we've got to take more responsibility in schools. Of course we do. But this is why I don't talk about the revolution. I talk about the evolution in schools. But there's got to be a revolution outside of it. You know, in my personal belief, and that's why we built 8billionideas.com. You know, why does the child have to go to one school now? Why can't they go to their school and go to a virtual school with 8 billion ideas? Why can't they go to two schools? You know, why can't they go to free schools? I don't care. But what they should be doing is learning around the clock. And what we're going to be doing now under 8 billion ideas is doing live experiences 24/7. So every day after school, every day of every week, and every day of every holiday, teaching this stuff, TJ. You're going to like it. So starting a business, proper career education, and what we're calling leveling up, because we need to help schools when the children are outside of it in particular to start learning. But you have to have that 24/7 lens when it comes to education. You know, we can't just put all the responsibility on our schools. It has to be a change in the way that we think.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, you're absolutely right. I think businesses have a part to play in this. I think if we want because I think it was last year or the year before, there was 226,000 jobs that had vacancies, but we didn't have the right skilled labor for it. So ultimately, we've got to be, education is built to develop the future workforce, right? To make sure that we are filling the jobs where we need labor. And ultimately, that's 250,000 people. Jesus Christ, a lot of people, right? That don't have the right skills to find the right job. And so it begs the question, I mean, what are we doing in school to make sure that we do reduce that void, right? And
but teacher, I think there's also a little bit of a myth here somewhere which has crept in, because I don't think you know, a lot of the young people I've met from different backgrounds do have, we're not getting a chance to show that, not to shine. And there's a lot of young people being put off applying for jobs, is what I'm hearing about, because they're being told they don't have the skills. And I encourage the young, you know, I would encourage them to be braver, but at least put your hat in the ring. And I would also be encouraging businesses to be braver at looking at that 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old coming out of education, and not just look at the grades, look at the story behind that young person. Because I certainly know from first-hand experience, I've got some incredible young people in the business who've got a different work ethic, who have absolutely relentless, incredibly creative, but they've had a little bit of time to flourish rather than just expecting. So I think there's two takes. Businesses need to be a bit braver in hiring young people. We need to stop telling young people they don't have all the skills. You know, they've definitely got skills. If they've not got the right skills, then we need to help them when they're in school.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, also we need to train them, right? I mean, like you can pick up skills. I mean, you can. I mean, like I went from an estate agency to a recruitment owner to now owning my own recruitment business to having my own, well, transforming the recruitment agency to an education consultancy. I mean, like we're forever adapting. We're adaptive as human beings. I mean, the last year has shown how adaptive human beings are, right? So it's like people can learn. Obviously, you've got to have certain traits to do certain jobs. Some people are going to be really good salespeople. Some people are going to be computer scientists. So like, I mean, it's about finding their niche. You're going back to that point, isn't it? It's about helping them find their niche. But you're right. I think CVs don't demonstrate, like if you got GCSE in A level, it does not demonstrate what kind of person you are. And then ultimately that's a problem in itself, isn't it? I mean, I could look at a CV, someone might have all A's and they come sit in front of me and they're an absolute donut. We've got nothing about them, you know? So, I mean, how do we differentiate that?
Well, I think we need to help young people be able to tell their story. Okay. So I remember we did this national competition with the Multi Academy Trust, and then the set of students beat 10,000 other students to win it. And I remember listening to them on the radio. So they got interviewed by their local BBC station, and they couldn't articulate anything about the process that they'd been in. They were kind of very nervous and shy and whatever it might be, but they couldn't really articulate the story. And a lot of people are like that, just not just in school, but outside of it. They don't sometimes realize how special they are, or sometimes the tiny achievement is actually a big achievement, and I want to hear about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
When I meet anybody who's applying for a bill, I just tell me your story. Tell me your story. You know, I don't just tell me your story in a clear start, middle, end, and then there'll be something that we can resonate and build a conversation on. And if you can't tell your story, then we can't really kick off and do anything, right? So yeah, we do have to think about it. And I think employees just need their responsibility is to give people the opportunity to tell their story and shine. But look, they've got to make a living themselves. You know, they're not charities businesses. They need to give young people an opportunity and come through the door and add value. But equally, they need to be better prepared when they're knocking on that door. I don't think it's a massive change, you know, but most career conversations are starting at 14, 15. It should be starting at 6 or 7. I'm not expecting, you know, my boy's 4. I don't expect him in a few years' time to tell me what he wants to be when he's 18 or 21. What I expect Toby at 6 or 7 is to tell me the things he loves doing. Okay,
Yeah.
What he's passionate about at that particular moment in his life, and then just get carried away with him. And that's what we should be doing, is just making our kids find what they're passionate about. That passion can change, it can evolve over time, and it will do. But if you're clearer, and TJ goes, I'm passionate about entrepreneurship, I'm passionate about recruitment, I'm passionate about education. Well, funny, TJ's gone and built a business which kind of ticks all those boxes, right? Yeah. So,
Yeah.
you know, you probably were always passionate about education. You're probably always passionate about business and passionate about people. You know, I could tell that from you just understanding a little bit about your background, and that's what you just got to unpick from a young person.
Yeah, 100%. I think you're absolutely right. It's about helping them find their niche, their passion. Look, ultimately, sometimes the counter argument is, but a child might not know what they want to do when they're 16, 17, and it's about making sure we give them a variety of subjects. I get what you're saying, but at that point, they should know what kind of person they want to become, right? And like, if you're going into the working world, into university, just doing a degree for the sake of it, but you don't actually know what you like, not what you want to do, but what kind of person you want to become. Like, what is your why? Like, what impact do you want to have on the world? Do you want to have an impact on the world? Do you want to be a good person? Do you want to make loads of money? I mean, what is your, like, what kind of person are you, right? And that's the problem. I mean, a lot of children leave school without an identity, you know, and that's what the big problem is, I think.
So one of our live experiences, in fact, we did at the weekend, was about helping a child write a passion statement. Four very simple sentences, okay, reflecting on themselves as a human being today, which actually, if you look at it, looks like the entry of like a cover statement. It was, my name is TJ and I'm passionate about X, Y, and Z. You know, that's it, number one. But my name is TJ and I'm proud that I have achieved X, Y, and Z, okay? What have you achieved which you're proud of? I'm on the football team. I do this little bit of charity work, or I'm a qualified for, you know, I'm proud about that. My name is TJ and I've got these skills, okay? X, Y, and Z. And then my name is TJ and this is what I want to do in the future. Some of the things I want to do in the future. I want to get my driving license. I want to buy a house. I want to travel to New Zealand, whatever it might be, okay? Just those very 4 sentences begin to open up a world of conversation between young person and carer at home, or indeed young person and somebody in school. But very few people can even summarize themselves as an adult in those 4 sentences. People are very unclear about what they're passionate about, what they've achieved, what skills they've got, or what they want to do. My piece of advice would just be start with that and then look at it and go, okay, that's told me a little bit more about my why as a person. We can definitely help young people. Look, I'm not saying a 16 or 18-year-old, you know, I want to be in recruitment. I want to be a vet. I want to be a nurse. You know, I was unclear, but what I wasn't unclear about the things which I was interested in. You know, I knew I needed to go continue to explore passion. I was always interested in my sport. I didn't know if that was a route for my career. Okay, I was interested. History was my favorite subject because I kind of loved reading up and the back. I didn't know where that could go, but it was something I knew I wanted to explore. And then business and economics. You know, you look at my decisions like at GCSE and A level. You know, you can see the roots of my passions in the subjects that I picked as an adult now. So that's how we should be guiding it. Young people, when they're making their decisions, the big bit of advice I could say is go with your gut. Right, when you're making any decision about and you're unsure, try and link it to your passion as much as you possibly can. Don't do something because somebody else tells you that you should do it. Do something because you want to do it. Okay. So many young people pick subjects or go to BTEC or go to university and they haven't got a clue why they're doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I picked maths, psychology, and economics, right? And then I thought it was the right thing to do because it's going to make me look smart, and I'm going to get into a better uni. I mean, literally, that was my thought process. Because I thought my mum and dad would get upset with me if I didn't pick the smarter subjects. But yeah, I mean, Jesus Christ, it didn't make any difference. You know what I mean? Ended up getting 3 C's, and I went to Kingston Uni, which isn't it's not in the top 50 or whatever university. So,
but it's not uncommon. People they pick them, and it's there's certain degrees and people end up finding themselves. I'm not picking on any accountants, but I'm just going to use it as an example. I've got a couple of friends who did their A levels, and when they're at university, like PwC and Ernst Young are flooding loads of marketing cash at universities for sponsorship. And so suddenly a 19, 20, 20-year-old is just seeing these logos around and they think they want to be an accountant. And it sounds good or it sounds professional. Then they're 26 and 27 and they've gone, how am I an accountant at X, Y, and Z? And it's because they've just kind of done things a little bit. You know, I did a history. I'm dyslexic, terrible at that's why I like podcasts rather than writing too much because I can articulate myself a little bit clearer. But you know, my logic was I was unsure at 16 and 18 for sure, but I knew I was interested in subjects. I knew I still wanted to go to university, and I knew at some point I wanted to start a business or get into a big business. And I did history because I was passionate about it. I knew I'd enjoy it at university, and arguably buy me a little bit of time to be a bit clearer about the next decision. And then when I had to make a decision, I went into the University of Sheffield Library, and I thought I need to start working out what I'm going to do next. I haven't got that business idea yet, and I did 2 things. So I used a bit of logic, which actually a lot of history graduates do. Is I got the Forbes 100 list out. The top 100 companies in the world. I thought I'm going to go work in a big company. I thought I'd be safe there and I could work out and hopefully make a bit of an impact. And I crossed off all the companies I thought were boring and thought I'm not going to work in those sectors, but technology was kind of standing out. So I thought, right, I'm going to go work in tech. This is not a lie. This is literally how I made my first big career decision. And then I got a business organization out and looked at all the different jobs in a big business, and I crossed off all the jobs I thought I'd be rubbish at. And then what ended up happening was literally that morning, I decided to be a professional salesperson in a technology company. And then when I applied to IBM, which is, was employing 400,000 people, 100 billion, I'm sitting there and said, this is why I'm here. And they were like, that is absolutely exactly why we want to hire humanities subjects. We don't want tech-based, or at that particular point, people were too much, they wanted people with the humanities kind of logic and way of thinking. And I loved my time at IBM, but then the little bit of frustration was creeping in after about 6 or 7 years, and I needed to get out and start 7 years later.
Yeah, fair. I mean, it's you're bang on the money, man. I think it's like, I mean, even when I went to university, I thought it's the right thing to do. I thought it's just, I mean, I went and studied business management thinking like they're going to teach me about entrepreneurship. I thought in my head one day I would become an entrepreneur, which ended up not being the case until about 1.5 years ago, actually. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, I just thought it's the right thing to do. I mean, I ended up with 40 grand debt, and did it help me with my career? I don't know. I don't think it did, And like a lot of the time, we're telling children that is the be all and end all. You got to get good GCSE grades. You got to get good A-level grades. Then you got to go to university, and that is the way that you're going to get a successful career. I mean, that is the biggest load of rubbish I've ever heard in my life, right? I mean, it's no kid should be going to university until they know what that degree is for, in my opinion. Like, go do some traveling, go like work, go get some experience, find out what lights you up, what is going to like drive your passion. Because if you're going to university at 18, all you're going to do is party for the first year, and then for the second and third year, you're just going to be doing a subject that actually might not have any relevance to what you want to go into, and then you're going to end up with 40 grand debt and actually nothing to really like have a career out of it that's going to pay that 40 grand debt off,
Yeah, I think it's going to be, we talk about education, but we do have to talk about higher education. I will be, I haven't put too much headspace or thinking into that. My concentration has been working with Fed really about primary and secondary school education, but I think the USP of universities will be challenged quite significantly in the next 5 to 10 years, right? So
I agree, man. It should be though.
If you're going for an experience and living away and learning or whatever, fine. But you've got to make sure, look at the ROI. Like I think my advice to my boys as they grow up will be very different to the advice, I don't regret going to university, but, arguably what have I taken from it? Probably built some lifelong friends, got me into IBM, but, fundamentally the degree, let's not get too much into that. But I think you've got to look at what's the ROI, the next decision, right? What's the return of investment of me going to university? Is it helpful or not? For me, being an entrepreneur, the best thing was just doing it, learning, listening, and having a professional coach and somebody that I'd lean on and talk to every now and then. And there was a point where my wife and I remortgaged the house, right, to keep the business going. And when I spoke to my old man, he said, look, it's like a real life MBA. You're going to learn, it's quite interesting because he's quite risk averse, my dad. And he said to me, and I was expecting him, he was going to go, David, this is absolutely crazy. What are you doing? And putting it all on the line. But I felt I had a duty to my wife to go and do it. And he just turned around and said, David, it's like a real life MBA. Put a time limit on it. If it's 3 or 4 years to see how far you can take it. Whatever happens, you're going to learn a huge amount,
exactly.
And it will shape you for the next bit. So I'm not telling everybody to remortgage the house or spend all their life savings. What I'm saying is, if you've got an idea, it doesn't matter how old you are, the best thing you can possibly do is just take some baby steps, get moving on it. You will learn, and don't worry if you fail, or don't worry if you hit an obstacle. That's all part of life. That's all part of the journey. Pick it up, learn, dust yourself down, and go again.
Do we need to be teaching children at a certain age how to use something as powerful as LinkedIn? I mean, and the reason I ask that is because we don't know what kind of careers are out there. I mean, my niece, she's so into human rights and as an activist, and you can't say anything that's politically incorrect in front of her. So what I told her to do was go follow people on LinkedIn, and when she's 16, start blogging about it, what she believes in. I mean, do we need to start doing more things like that to open doors for children in terms of knowing what's out there?
Yeah, the personal brand, the personal brand begins straight away, right? Kids start getting labeled as soon as they're in school, that they're the bright one, or they're the tricky one, or they're the pain in the arse, right? It happens. The personal brand is building. It happens the moment you walk into a school, the moment you walk outside of your house. it accelerates when you move into secondary school. So I definitely believe that we should be talking to young children, not necessarily about CV management at the age of 11, but what is your personal brand? What's your why going to be? What do you want to be known as when people when your back is turned? That's what a brand is. It's what they say about PJ or David when we turn our back. And what you can do is begin to look after that brand and work on it. And I definitely believe in the power of LinkedIn. Now, what young people need to realize is that LinkedIn is a business platform, okay? What's on there is your business platform, but you should be building your network straight away. You never know. This world is no longer 6 degrees separated. It's 3 or 4, right? And, you know, it's crazy how the network can help you at different points in your life and how you can help other people. And if you want to take it seriously, you've got to be on LinkedIn, you've got to be managing it, you've got to be looking at it. And, you know, even recently for us, so we've been 8 billion ideas was announced as the largest edtech investment in the world earlier this year for what we're building. And but the private equity firm that we're working with, there was somebody I worked with a long time ago in a previous disguise who heard that we were looking, knew about my brand over 10 years ago, even before 7 billion ideas, let alone 8 billion ideas, knew I was a trusted source and they should look at it, right? And I think unless it had LinkedIn, I don't think that, I genuinely don't believe that would have come about, okay? So people have got to look after their personal brand and they've got to realize networking isn't just jumping in a room and giving out a business card. Networking is something you do every single day for the rest of your life. And networking is about giving back as well as taking at times or utilizing it, okay? So I think we should be talking about personal branding very early on in schools, linked closely to social media.
Yeah, I mean, like what we end up teaching them is you've got a CV, like you do a couple of pages, write a personal statement, and then you go like drop it off into some shops, right? I mean, that's what I was taught. I know the world has changed. I don't know if schools still do that, but I think there is an element of actually preparing children for the real world. You've got to get them onto LinkedIn by the time they're 16, though, if that's the legal way. I don't know what it is on LinkedIn, but start making sure you're following the right people. If you want a job in a company, go find the director, the managing director, message them again in a day's time, message them again in a couple of days time. Do you know what I mean? Like, get your foot through the door. These are the things that proactive, like, sort of approaches, that is what's going to help you get into the companies that you want to work in or gain the experience that you want to gain, right? You're not going to do that necessarily just by doing a CV, you know? I mean, I've got a virtual assistant at the moment that's in the Philippines, and like I interviewed so many people, but I ended up offering her the job because she went on my website, she found me, and then she emailed me through the website, whereas everybody else I was kind of like approaching. So I found that that proactive approach, the reason why I gave her the job. I mean, children need to be thinking about how to be proactive in what they want to do, right? And I don't think we're necessarily giving them those tools to do that.
Yeah, but that's exactly my point, right? You don't need to employ people in a 5 or 10 mile radius from your office anymore. You can employ anybody from across the United Kingdom or the world. So it doesn't matter where a child might be, they're moving to a position they can work for anybody, okay? If the vast majority of the jobs they will be able to do from where they are. Now, obviously, people have different aspirations where they want to live. That's their bit. But you do have to have that bit of resilience and grit. Make yourself stand out in a little bit of a different way. And you don't have to be all guns blazing sometimes. It can be subtle and it can be persistent. So a good example is we've just employed someone today who's just joined our video editing team. He applied to the job 6 months ago in the business with a slightly different role. Interviewed really well. My head of people, Joe, said to keep in touch. The amount of times we say keep in touch with strong candidates and they don't keep in touch, okay? This young man kept in touch every 2 weeks, just checking how things are going, just seeing us on social media. So he wasn't just like auto-repeat every 2 weeks. He was genuinely wanting to come work for us. Next opportunity comes up at the beginning of January. He's perfect for the job he's in, right? Brilliant bit of persistence. Smart from him in knocking on the door and keep going, making himself stand out in the way that he had some soft skills and fly. And so yes, that's part and parcel of networking in a different way. Okay, it's like entrepreneurship. Everybody thinks of Dragon's Den or Raw Sugar. When you talk about networking, everybody gets uncomfortable. They think it's business cards and in a room. It's not about that. It's about using your personal brand and utilizing like LinkedIn. But there's not enough teachers on LinkedIn to start off with. Not the whole of the profession is on it, which they should be, or vast majority. How can a head of careers teach about LinkedIn or even use to talk about it if they're not on LinkedIn themselves?
It's mental. I mean, there should not be one single person that's head of careers in a school that is not on LinkedIn. You know, I think that is absolutely bonkers. If they're trying to give information about things they don't even have a clue about. I mean, I think, yeah, look, I think it's for us in some respects, like companies like us, people doing what we're doing to educate schools, because for some, and it's no like, look, it's no negative. I'm not trying to say this in a negative way. I know I'm conscientious about time, but I'm not trying to say this in a negative way, but like, most teachers would have left school, gone to university, and then gone straight back into teaching. Do you know what I mean? So they might not have that real world experience, that corporate experience to be able to guide them in the right way. We might just need external people that they can go to and rely on to give that kind of training, because, and it's no fault of their own, but it's just the way that the system is, right? I mean, you get your PC, then you go become a teacher. I mean,
we did a teacher tap survey back in the last year, and 8% of secondary school teachers who responded felt like they were well equipped to advise young people on their careers. Okay, you know that's the problem, TJ. 27% of primary school children didn't think the question was relevant to them. Right, so this is the problem. Careers education is not monitored because we just focus on the exam-based stuff, but it's the most important thing because children go to school to prepare them for their future. So we just like so many different areas, we need to have some refreshing, interesting, thought-provoking discussions about how we do it. My personal opinion is, you know, careers, you know, we don't have one job in our life. I think the average now, by the time someone's 35, the likelihood is between 8 and 10 jobs. So let's stop talking about careers. Okay, let's just genuinely stop talking about it. Let's start creating what I'd love to see, and people will agree or disagree. I don't, you know, it's up to them. All it will do is create discussion. I'd love to see passion departments in schools. I'd love to see that we blow the mind up of a young child, that they are living in a world where anything is possible. And our job is to help them get a little bit nearer towards their passions. If you have that information out of a young person about what they're passionate about, you could probably advise them better about their pathways, the options, the careers they might want to consider. You can't give a good advice unless you've unlocked that first piece, okay, which is the passion element. So we've got to do that, and we've got to find ways of giving children the genuine skills and belief to change the world. We're hoping that we're here to help under 8 billion ideas. We know we're here to help and really help and support and partner schools where a child is only in school for 15% of their waking hours. There is plenty of other time, and I think we need to be quite maybe revolutionary in this space rather than evolution. Revolution in the way that we do it. The answers aren't as difficult. I genuinely don't believe we're a million miles off, TJ. I just think it is a little bit of it will be a very fresh how we do it.
It's a mind shift, isn't it? But amen to everything you've just said. And just to kind of add to that, I think we need, once we kind of help them find their passions in the niche and the things that they're good at, is to actually get some visible role models that they can look up to and relate to. You know, I think that's a really important part, is to feel like you can see people that have done it that are from similar backgrounds to you. I think that is a really integral part of what companies need to be doing as part of their corporate social responsibility. But look, man, we'll leave it there. I think there's so many good points to take.
You can't just chuck 1 or 2 role models in a child and think that's sufficient. They need thousands of inspirational stories. Then 1 or 2 will stick, and that will change a child's life. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, we'll leave it there, David. I know you're sort of in a bit of a rush, but look, man, it was really nice to have you on. We spoke about so many changes that need to happen. And again, just to kind of reiterate to anyone that's listening, we're not gunning the profession. We're not saying that teachers aren't doing a good job. We're more saying that there's systemic issues that kind of just need to be overlooked in some respects and actually reevaluated what the purpose of education is. I feel like we could do more for children to prepare them for the world after school. And obviously, David, you did an amazing job to try to make that happen, along with Foundation for Education Development. I think they're doing a cracking job too. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in the summit. There's 1.3 million people working in education in the United Kingdom today. There is enough brain power in this particular space to solve all the problems in education. We've got to unite. We've got to have a long-term vision for education. FEDA, I think, the best place to do that. Then collectively, we need to have thought-provoking discussions, which really pushes to what the right answers are for the future of education. So that's my belief on it. But TJ, thanks for your time, mate. Well done on the podcast. Keep going, and shout out if I can help out with anything with you personally.
Fantastic. Thanks everyone for watching. David, thanks, mate.
Thanks, buddy.